Okay, Ernest is on.
There he is, right there. And we are live on YouTube.
I bring the meeting of the Northwest Regional Board of Directors to order. Board Secretary White, would you please call the roll?
Becky Timchuk.
Here.
Chris Riley.
Here.
Maureen Russell. Here. Doug Doherty.
Here.
Maureen Wolf.
Here.
Ernest Stevens.
He's here.
Michelle Graham.
Here.
Miriam Menendez Rios. Here. Paul Jarrell.
Here. Thank you. All right, we'll start off this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Miriam is going to lead some Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, we're good. That's the actual YouTube stream. I have it testing so we can make sure it's go. And yeah, I caught it a little late on that one. Yeah, it's got the bleep. Yep.
Okay, Michelle.
Oh God.
You go ahead and acknowledgement.
That's what people can give double. We want to acknowledge that we gather as Northwest Regional ESD on the traditional lands of the Chinook, Claxonite, Claxopney, Halen, Kalapuya, Siletz, and Tillamook peoples, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations.
We were reminded last week at the ESD that anytime we do that, we should also have a great, good call to action and what this means with us being here at this land. So that we're grateful to be here and for those lines we have. Board, is there any review or revisions to tonight's agenda? All right, we're going to move on forward. First up is Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's great to see everybody in person here in Hillsborough. And Ernest, you're very large on the screen, so you're like, oh, you know, almost as in person as everybody else. So I'm really happy that I started my report in a really positive way because and I am gonna I was reminded today by Mallory, who's actually in the board report here, so we want to recognize some of her awards, that it's good to have a sandwich. Like start with the good, you know, you hit the meat in the middle sometimes, then you kind of round it out. So that's my goal, because we did have a revenue forecast today in the state of Oregon. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what that was and what it means for Oregonians and the families that we serve in our state. So, but I am going to start with some of that stuff. So the first is that Yolanda Coleman, who has been before the board a number of times, is accelerating into our director of HR position that is being vacated by Catherine Dolby, who is, as the board knows, going to be our Chief Human Resources Officer with Debbie Simons, and so the domino goes. But Yolanda is a fantastic educator. She came from Hillsborough School District before she came to the ESD. She was a principal, a very highly esteemed principal, as you will see in the right up here. And she also was in Portland Public, which I don't hold against her because I started my career there too. So she worked in a King Elementary School in Portland Public, and is just a fantastic, positive human being that I'm proud to see accelerate and advance in our organization. So wanted the board to know that Yolanda, of course, is on the personnel report, and we're welcome to our program. Welcome her to the directorship. Mallory Turner, who I just mentioned, was just awarded the Noel Canal Construction and Professional Development Award. And this is an OEA award, or the Education Association. And it's somebody, as I said here, for somebody who demonstrates exceptional leadership in the development and implementation of instructional programs or professional development. Mallory, so I get to walk by Mallory's desk almost every day here at the ESD. She is a master professional developer. And she is, and I've wrote a couple of things in here, but one thing I wanted to point out is her work on this RTAP grant, which is a statewide technical assistance professional development grant for special educators. And Mallory, I was just talking to the special ed director, they don't call it that, Department of Ed, and just the impact that program is having across the state. Our school districts is seen by state leaders. And Mallory is a leader amongst leaders, as you can obviously see. So it's really fun to be able to highlight people like that in our agency who are doing just incredible work. And the last like feel good individual story here of the evening is about Leslie Sharp. And Leslie is a joy. She's over here in the hallway. There's always a good amount of laughter and fun with Leslie, and she does this outstanding job in the background in HR, aligning our systems and helping with staff and supports. And so the underbelly kind of HR is a very technical place. Lots of moving pieces, a lot of computer systems. We're trying to bring people on quickly, but also without missing important steps like background checks and other components. And Leslie's just a master of bringing those things together. And so Leslie was awarded the Oregon Associated School Personnel Administrators. Always say OSPRA, so I never really read the whole thing out loud, but she's a specialist of the year, which is a really big honor for her. So congratulations. Lindsay Sharp. He's gonna make fun of me. Lindsay here? Oh, good. Let's about that from the record if you don't want to let You have no idea. If you knew Lindsay, you know she's coming after me. So I wanted to change gears to the Foxbach Early Learning Center dedication that we had. First of all, we had a lot of board members there, and it was great to see people and to be there in that space. Kelsey Soltishak, she was really stressed out about that event, I would say, and did a lot to bring that thing together. And she was stressed because this is the last time you're going to see Kelsey in person for a little while. As you know, Kelsey is expecting very, very soon. And so she has a lot of deadline oriented stuff that she's trying to accomplish right now. And this was a really big project for her. I thought the day was really amazing and wonderful. The facility is beautiful and all the things, and really what a legacy for this community, for this organization to expand our footprint in early learning to the degree that we have here with this 50,000 square foot building in a place that's characterized right as a child care desert in the state of Oregon. And so we're and this board has done its part in trying to expand access and tackle this problem that we have in the state of Oregon and also here. And so it was really cool activity. It was a really great day, and there's fun pictures in here. And I was also very inspired personally by our director Russell's comments here. Did a wonderful job talking about the power of power of frogs and the power of what we do. So it was a wonderful event. And then we also had Senator Solomon came to the event. I got to tour her around the facility, and folks who are listening and our staff and our board should know that Senator Solomon has put in helping to fund part of that project as her #1 capital projects priority for in the legislature for capital projects Ways and Means Bill. And so Stacey Rager, our executive director, went down on Friday and testified to that committee, did a wonderful job talking about the need for more infrastructure for early learning in our region and everywhere. And and we got a follow-up call from the committee. So very pleased, and who knows, like the money's very tight, as I'm gonna mention here soon, but it is the #1 priority project for a great supporter of public education and early learning achievement center. So it's real great. Okay, so the legislature and budget considerations. So first, the good news. I'm learning from Mallory. First, the good news. There's been a few bills that have passed and have been signed into law. One of them around education. One of them is an early learning bill. Actually, there's 2 early learning bills, but one has funding connected to it, and it allocates $35 million to summer programming across the state of Oregon. When you take a look at, and then ODE has sent an estimate out to the districts who qualify and actually to districts who have not qualified. This is not a grant that's going to touch all kids everywhere. The districts that qualify, there's a formula based on student need and historical communities who have been historically marginalized from receiving this level of support. And so some districts didn't get. The majority of districts in Oregon did not receive funding. And in every single district in the state of Oregon, I don't care where you are, you're in Oregon, you can turn the corner and there are kids in need in Oregon. And so while we're very excited, and this will start hopefully a habitual funding of ongoing care for kids over these long summer months, it is not enough money to serve the needs in the state of Oregon. But it is a very positive thing. At the ESD, we qualified for a small, I would say small grant of $80,000. We are teaming, and by we, I mean John Petlinski and his team, Whitney Wagner, are teaming with other districts who also qualified. So we're trying to basically compound our resources and try to make more, have the sum be more than the parts of all these different grants. So we're excited about that work. And it's a step in the right direction forward. The other thing that I think is positive here is that we know is moving through the legislature, and we expect to see happen is a PERS rate reduction across the state. So many districts. I was talking to Director Riley over here because she used to work in the Gaston School Board, and Gaston School Board, the Gaston School District has seen double-digit increases in their PERS liability rates, and it's not just percentages; it's like literally dollar for dollar increases. So they have, I think it was 14% in 12, but that is basically if something costs you $1, now it costs you $1.12, and you just multiply that over the course of your budget, which is most of the staff. And so our districts have seen massive increases. This bill that is now going to become law and goes to the PERS board when they set rates, will bring that rate down by 1.68 percentage points for most districts in the state of Oregon, including the CSD and including, I believe, every district in our region, I believe. And so it's welcome news. It is in the context of the state school fund and the economic forecast I'm about to talk about. It's critical. And so we were happy to see the governor push on that, and we made some progress there. So the economic forecast did happen today, this morning, and it was not good. So in the state of Oregon, from the last forecast, so the June forecast, the last forecast was the April forecast that really happened in March. So the forecast is approximately just shy of $800 million from what the last forecast showed. That's a lot of money. That's a big change in the forecast, and there's all kinds of rationale for why that is. But Oregon is highly dependent on income tax and property tax and income tax. That really is driving this right now. We see what's happening at the federal level and the world stage, and so those things trickle down to the amount of revenue available to the state or forecast to be available to the state. So that adds quite a chilling effect across the state. A lot of people today wringing their hands about their programs. And especially those of us on obviously in the social service. People are very stretched right now. So what does that mean for us? We do not know. We know that it's going to be even more difficult right now to get additional resources into the programs that the board knows are our priority. Our priorities to get more funding into. Specifically, our state contracts like EIECSE and Regional Inclusive Services, but also the state school fund. We were hopeful to urge and have legislative support for additional special education funding into the general K-12 system. Those are things that we're going to have to fight even harder for because the resources are much more constricted. So we did get a budget estimate, a program revenue estimate for EIECSE and Regional Inclusive Services. And again, the news on Regional Inclusive Services is potentially good for us in terms of like we're getting what we thought we would. Other ESDs or Public runs their own program. The results of that estimate are sporadic. They're very dependent on student enrollment or enrollment into that program by districts. So it can go up and down, but for us, it looks like it's going to be okay. EIECSE is a different picture. And the board knows this is my number one priority in the legislative session. And our staff knows that too, I believe, and we've done a ton of work to highlight this program and get it on the map for legislators. In the governor's budget, there was a current service level calculation, which basically means we're going to get what we need to maintain what we have. That number is calculated at $408 million, give or take a couple of other numbers on the end, but $408 million. And the estimate that we just got basically equates to $398 million for the state. So there's a $10 million reduction in the EIECSE budget that we just received. I have talked to many people in the last few days about this, and there is now, at first there was not a recognition that this program was getting shortchanged. There is now broad recognition that this program is now below current service level. From the legislature right now. This has got to be something that we change. We do have time, and other things just got harder with this revenue estimate. This cannot be our reality for the youngest and most needy kids in Oregon. And so we are going to fight really hard through the rest of the session to make sure that we can get a different number, a higher number into EIECSE. Yeah, I have a question.
You said that was statewide. What percentage of the statewide budget does Northwest?
17. We believe it's enrollment based, so you're always on it, but we're about 17.5%. So we're looking at $1.75, $1.8 million reduction as it stands right now in our budget, which we all know it's a reduction from a program level that's, I would say, sustainable in the way that we're running the program. So more cuts will have to mean for us probably a different program design. We can't continue to ask our staff to do the same with less year over year. And so we all got to buckle in on this. I know it's the board's number one legislative priority as well. And so there'll be opportunities. We're going to run through the finish line here with the state legislation on the CSC. Having said that, we have to produce a budget. We have a budget meeting next week. And I just want to remind the board, and I asked the board once before, like we're going to have to stay as cognitively flexible in this environment around our budget as possible, because there are so many planes still in the air that have not landed. Next week, we're going to, we already produced the budget. Obviously, we've got a meeting, and we're setting the levels high because we need the authority to actually have the positions if they come. It's a rosier budget than might be our reality, and that's just by nature of what's happening in the state. Okay, so that was the meat and the negative part, and so I was told that I have to end things nice and happy. So I'm gonna give it a shot. We have had we've had a number of kind of year-end moments here at the ESD where certain programs have their kind of capstone projects, so to speak. And I've been able to get around to a whole bunch of them. It has been so exciting, the work that our staff are doing in a number of areas. We had an artificial intelligence conference that we put on with Mohoma ESD and Blackness ESD this week. It was amazing. It was an amazing conference. I learned a ton. I was actually supposed to leave in the middle of the day to go to another one of our team's projects, which is the ninth grade success teams convening at Rock Creek. And I just couldn't leave because I was like, I'm learning too much here and it's really amazing. So hats off to G Bundy and John Kaplinsky and others in that, and Stuart Long. Everybody's pointing at each other for putting that thing together with these other ESD teams. It was really, really amazing. And Dr. Dougherty was there as well. So really, really good stuff. We also hosted the Educator Advancement Council here at the ESD for 2 days. One of those days, I was in attendance and it was more than just the EAC. It was like people from RENs from across the state, regional educator networks. And our team, led by Julie Swanson, Jerome Townsend, had 7 stations, which are the 7 pillars of that program. Things like early learning, our mentoring program, effective coaching, equity and family partnership, and community engagement. And these are programs that we're running for all 20 of our school districts, and our 20 school districts are engaged with us. And I did the rotation with a lot of folks who, like, decision maker types. And people left just completely wrapped about the scope involved and scale at which we're doing some of these programs. Like, we have over 200 mentees in our mentoring program. We started that program up last year. We have 50 people that we're actually training to be mentors, 50 plus in all of our districts. It's like things like that. Like, wow, we're really doing something to help improve the lives of teachers and kids in our school districts. It's really exciting. And lastly, the last one I'll talk about is our Oregon Association of ESD conference, we have an annual conference, and I happened to be president this year, and we had 4 of our board members come. I really appreciate those of you who were able to make the trip. Director Russell just talked about a land acknowledgement that we participated in, I would say, more than heard. And it was from a gal from High Desert ESD who urged us to do things like go to the Warm Springs Museum on your way home, which Director Russell did, and things that are more than just these proclamations, to learn more, to do more, etc. It was a great conference. We had 3 sessions that we put on. Dr. Megan McCarter was in every one of them. And she was also expecting a baby, and so she was working her tail off during the whole thing. And it was really good. Our feedback in our sessions was outstanding. And lastly, on that, we are going to have transition at the executive director level at OASD. So Amber Eden will be leaving the organization, and we are doing interviews on Friday for the next executive director. So I'm excited for the next chapter of that. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Board members have any questions? All right, thank you so much for that report. Now it's time for recognition and good news. Private partnership, Kelsey.
Good evening, Chair Temchuk and board members. Tonight I have Dan Blair from TriMet representing TriMet, and actually get to represent multiple partners. But you only have to speak to the one, don't we? We've got multiple partnerships with TriMet, going on across the organization. The pictures that you see up on the screen are of our blind visually impaired team. Those students recently went on a trip with some of their mobility and orientation teachers and other teachers, both to move through TriMet, but also to give feedback. They're collecting feedback from our students on improvements, which is really exciting. Eileen, who's named in the board packet, is not here with us right now, but Dan is here and is going to talk about another partnership we've got going with TriMet as well.
Good evening, my name is Dan Blair. I'm the Executive Director of Transit System and Asset Support, and one of the areas I'm over at Stream. So we are really excited to be working with you on your CDL program for a couple of reasons. First off is that we have recently changed our policy regarding CDLs and we now hire as young as 18 years old with 2 years of driving experience. So before it was 21 years old, 3 years of driving experience. So the really exciting part for us is that we can directly target high school, recent high school graduates within our community that we serve to recruit them so we can directly hire within high schools. So my training team is going to be visiting all the area of high schools and doing outreach and recruiting from not only this program, but hopefully your CTE program, so that we can get high school students with a basic technical understanding and backgrounds that we can bring into our training program. Our training programs last from 2 to 4 years, and when they graduate, they'll be making approximately $50,000 a year. So for us, I think that's easy for a sell for us, saying you're 18 years old, by the time you're 21, you'll be making $1,000. Trying that from school. Great, I think. Have any questions, please let me know.
And for those that were here through COVID, CDL is commercial driver's
Oh,
license,
sorry.
not comprehensive distance. We grab a book.
How many? What do you think you can perhaps, how many students do you think you can perhaps hire?
Between maintenance and transportation, we have 2,700 positions that require CDL. We recently, as you know, during COVID and the last baby boomer generation in the last 5 years, we have turned over 50% of our staff.
Wow.
That slowed down quite a bit. I would estimate between at least 100 to 200, possibly 300 annually. The turnover rate was as high as 10%. That has slowed as the economy has slowed down. We're not losing as many people to work, but 200 to 300 is probably a good estimate.
So, so I just wanted to mention, a couple of things about why we're invested in this program. So, under John's, case leadership, Judy and Jacob Gray have gone about looking for areas in our sectors where we have high number of high wage, family stable jobs with the lowest number of training programs in the schools to support workforce effectively, workforce training effectively. In the transportation sector in the metro area beyond China, there are tens of thousands of jobs. 17.
Depends on how you count it, but
Yeah.
lots.
Lots of jobs. So there's time that we have like Knife River and other transportation, logistic and construction tech companies that and our high schools have zero transportation logistics that support that workforce. So this is like a sweet spot for us to be in because we obviously are all about getting kids into careers and life, having the lives that they want. And this sector is probably because of the things that Dan just mentioned, that the rules were such that it didn't make sense for high schools to be in this space. Right now we are. And so we have an opportunity to really make a difference here. And this is, as the board knows, we've been talking about workforce development programming and trying to lead into this space, because the way it works right now is if somebody who is in workforce in TriMet and knows a high school teacher that happens to be over the low end of lethal mechanic shop, right? There's a phone call that's made, and maybe there's some connections for kids in that program to have that connection. But we have 30+ high schools in our region, right? So that's not exactly the way to go about ensuring that all kids, regardless of their zip code, are getting access to these services. So it's a really exciting opportunity for the kids and for, just in terms of, so for the, I believe, for employers to have this level of access in those programs. So we're really excited.
One, love all of the things that you're doing within the community, and I think that when I first moved here to Oregon, like being new to TriMet was like, where am I, why do I do this? And it was just, it has definitely evolved since I moved here in '99. But with the CDL program, is there any potential or ideas of any other things that, you know, you might be considering in, you know, kind of reaching out some of those high school students? I know with the CDL, you know, kind of opens the door to different positions. And I know for a fact, there's like a lot of young kids who are also just very interested in like the mechanical, electrical things of, you know, just, you know, really hands-on, and it's something that like, man, this is really great. My husband went through the LRB technician program and he really loved it. He's like, if this was available when I was younger, it would have been amazing. He was one that didn't really, you know, kind of think of like, I'm not going through a whole college, you know, thing. I love hands-on. And so he really enjoyed this. I'm really excited that this is something I don't really pursue them. So I just want to say really great job.
Thank you very much. I'm actually graduated in the LRB training program as well. 30 years in the maintenance of LRBs. Yeah, we have a number of programs. We also have summer internship programs for college students at PSU. We have 12 different technical fields that range from substations, traction power, to track, structures, facilities maintenance, bus maintenance, and of course, LRB maintenance. And we train from scratch in-house. So if you could come to us with just basic CTE training, some ASE certification, we can put you into a diesel program, and that one graduates in about 18 months. So lots of opportunities to try that. We also do have an engineering and construction division, which builds all of our alignments and builds our facilities and structures. They have interns as well, in entry-level technical positions. So we have a broad range of career opportunities at TriMet with about 3,200 employees.
And we always know we need future school bus drivers. I'm always looking for those. All right, we ready for,
Yeah, Ernest is.
oh, is Ernest, you have your hand?
I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's get a photo. I think Chair Tim checked like the whole board photo last time, so if I can bother you all.
There you go. I like our full board one.
No.
Maybe those on the outside can squeeze in right here. Take a photo, are you in?
Yeah, sure. Just point where I say.
There. We'll get that nice, the photo of the field trip in the background. Okay. Oh. Ready? One. Do you wanna go? Okay, you come first. Okay, ready, 1, 2, 3, and I'll do one more, 1, 2, 3. Thank you all.
Congratulations. Fixing one does.
By the way.
All right, next order of business, public comments. Is there any public comment this evening? No. There after that, there's no public comment, so we will move on to the next order of business and, that is the consent agenda.
We approved the consent agenda.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question. It's not worthy of pulling off, and Dan, hopefully you can answer this because John left. But the NOS contract, I look at it every year, always intrigued by the food. Are there any substantive changes? I feel like it kind of rolls every year, and I don't think it was noted in the program. So it's
There are not substantial, they are pretty much rolled over. Yeah, the pricing is still catching up to it.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, the motion passes unanimously. All right, next up are reports and discussions, and first up is supporting the new Oregon graduation requirements. And go.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, Superintendent Coleman. We are here to give you an update on something you may know about or may not know about. Senate Bill 3 was passed last year. It was in effect with the class of 2027, which is coming up. There aren't any school here, and so it is around career ed and higher education skills and financial literacy. So 2 new requirements for graduation for students, and so Sarah's gonna go through and give you an update. This is Sarah Franklin, one of our career college readiness team members.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it should, if it doesn't, I can click for you.
Also, brief background, so we're all on the same page, but the Senate Bill 3, the new graduation requirements, will start with the graduating class of 2027. Every student from then on will need to have a 0.5 of higher education career path skills and 0.5 of personal financial education on their transcript in order to graduate from the state of Oregon. The total amount of credits didn't change, they just reallocated and took 1 credit from electives and distributed it into these 2.5 requirements. And then you can see I linked on there the standards that OBE has created for each course if you want to do some deep diving into what students will cover in those courses. But here's just kind of an overview. For the higher education and career path skills, there's those 4 main domains, and each of those domains can then be broken into 3 or 4 standards. For personal financial education, there's 5 domains, and again, each of those can be broken into 3 or 4 standards. So what our team did this year, we first came up with this resource, which we linked in the presentation, just a 1-pager, kind of a one-stop shop for our districts to get everything they need, kind of first glance for these 2 requirements coming down the pipeline. And then the next thing that we did was we sent out a survey this past fall. So send it out to all of our component school districts to see where are you at with planning, and also what do you need moving forward. We had 14 unique districts respond, and as you can see for the higher education career path skills course, people are kind of right in the middle between we haven't even started planning for this and we have options in place that could meet the requirements as they stand. To compare that with the personal financial education, it seemed like most districts that we surveyed felt better about that and that they had courses in place. They just maybe needed to tweak them a little bit to meet the new standards. So our focus was really more on the higher education career path skills, but we still offered support with personal financial education. We also asked folks about meeting virtually, and a lot of people were interested in that virtual collaboration. And everyone was interested in any resources related to the curriculum that we could provide. So based on the survey results and the needs of our districts, one of the things that we did was we put together what we called our support group for Senate Bill 3. We had 3 different virtual collaborations. They were each an hour long.
And 15 unique districts were represented, and there were about 50 individuals, and that's our boots on the ground, like teachers, counselors, up to curriculum and instruction at the district level, sometimes superintendents for our smaller districts. But it was a really great space just to kind of get everyone in the same room per se, and especially for the higher education career path skills course. It doesn't make sense for us to come up for each district to have its own version of the same class. If we can kind of collaborate and brainstorm together, then we can avoid that duplication of work. We also put together this really extensive spreadsheet that has tabs at the bottom for both the higher education career path skills and the personal financial education course, and different curriculums that could meet those standards. And if there's a crosswalk, it has that linked. And is it free? Is it asynchronous, capable, or virtual? So we had folks look at that and kind of figure out what might work for them. And our team also had a conversation with ODE in wintertime just to kind of talk about implementation and best practices. And that's kind of what led to that SB3 scenarios link, which I don't have a little screenshot on there, but you can take a look at it later. But just kind of like the way that these were intended to be implemented in schools and best practices for districts that are looking at getting those going. So by the end of this school year, this past spring, we surveyed our support group again, just to kind of see where are you at now and what are your needs moving forward. We had a very small response rate. We know this is a really hard time of year for our school districts, especially those who are working in the face-to-face with students. But we saw that a lot of people are still interested in collaboration, still interested in sharing resources. And so our hope is that next year we're going to continue this collaboration and continue to offer a space. Just like a lot of other teams at the ESD, we're in a great position where we can bring people together from across our region, have them all at the table and collaborate. So again, we're not having that kind of duplication of work with these courses. That's all I have.
Open for questions.
Yeah.
So that means the current freshmen and sophomores have to have these classes completed before they can graduate.
That's correct.
So the schools really need to have classes in place.
They can apply for a waiver through OED, but that's only going to last them a year. So still the class of 2020 to have that then. Yeah.
Well,
Remind me how many hours of instruction is a half a credit for high school?
About one semester.
It's about one semester,
Yeah.
that need an hour a day. Depends on the schedule, we have on the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An hour to 90 minutes, probably. Yeah.
So there's no set.
There is no
formula necessarily.
ODE does not have any set guidelines like that for like what the logistics of the course should look like. Just the standards.
Okay.
any other questions? I have one. Looking at the folks that participated, there were 18. So out of 20, right? Out of our 20. I'm just,
From the original survey.
yes. So I'm just wondering if you could approximate, were most of those that felt like they were not prepared yet?
Yeah.
Are those more your smaller school districts of our component school districts? Are you seeing that? Because what we're hearing at the state level is it seems to be more of a challenge for some of our smaller school districts. And so I just wondered if you found that here locally. So I know you had 2 that did not participate, and then of the ones that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
the
that-
14 different school districts. I saw it as kind of a mix, but definitely leaning more toward our smaller districts are feeling a bit more stressed about, especially the FTE, who's going to teach this class and what will that take off the table for courses for the students when that takes place. I think that was is a big stressor from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and to add to that, at the state level, there was some back and forth with what this course was supposed to be. It looked like whether it was supposed to be added in to another course, existing course, or would it have to be a standalone? So districts were kind of waiting on that before they can make decisions on the calendars. High school calendar making starts really early, and so this late information caused some things to change up, and so those are the ones you'll see probably waiting. So we can have a little bit more time to get the calendar and how this looks, but yeah, we did add an extra credit to graduation requirements, they just changed it. So most of the schools that's the real challenge, is how do we allocate staff who have licenses.
And did you find that most of them were still trying to find ways to already incorporate with the career credit that is required?
Well, this has to be on it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I think that they're trying to find creative ways where they don't have to do the same thing twice for students. What that looks like, I don't think anyone's like, oh, we've got it, we've figured this out just yet. So I think that there's still, and everyone does the career credit a little bit differently.
That's the point I was next going to make.
Yeah,
You can, even from high school to high school, they
right.
address it differently, let alone district to district.
Yeah, the final ruling was there be a little more flexibility, and so that's allowing some districts to use their advisory time to implement this, and some districts are choosing to spread it out over the 4 years of the education, high school. Some are just going to focus on junior year. So, but with more flexibility allows a little bit more entry point into a different schedule.
Yes.
So the flexibility is for the rest of the board is, Becky has on the State Board of Education, she has an inside scoop of some of this stuff. So the big disagree, or the big thing that we were waiting is whether this has to be a standalone course or whether you can embed the standards within things that already exist. School districts, especially in the career side of this, not necessarily financial literacy, have embedded career standards within their curriculum for years. They're called CURLEs, they're career-related learning standards. And so you'll see them pop up throughout the kids' curriculum. It is the intention of this law, as stated by the people who passed it, which is a pretty big hubbub at the state level, is that these are standalone courses. The flexibility is that just like if a student goes to an online school and they can demonstrate proficiency in a standard, that you can have some more flexibility in the way that. So I think it's going to be a really interesting ongoing deal, because the intent really is to make sure that these courses are taught. And I think we'll probably get a few more corrections in the next couple of years, and this thing will end up landing somewhere where it's not right now. If I were a man. But it is a prime example of an additional requirement that came without any funding. And yes, the smaller your district and the smaller your staff, the less opportunity you have for filling in gaps in your curriculum. And so I would assume, and Sarah, you would know, but I would assume that the places where this is really having an adverse impact on other elective offerings would be in the smaller high schools. Just by nature of the breadth and scope and the volume of the courses that are available.
I believe in these courses, and especially financial literacy, it's all really important, but it does, if you just heartache in the year of severe cuts, and I know there are districts. I mean, it's easy to say, we didn't increase this, the graduation requirements, that we reduced an elective, and I know there are districts and high school principals making very difficult cuts around electives that are really critical programs for students. So there's no question there. It's just heartburn as to the times that we're in and the choices that are happening. So I don't know, it would be nice to see thread it a little bit better to bring it all together, but that's another conversation. So
I thank you, as Superintendent alluded to, when I'm around that table, I like to speak any facts and say, out in the field, this is what I'm hearing. And bring it back. And, this has been controversial since day one and it stays controversial. And this comes from somebody that worked, 25 years for junior achievement, which I totally believe in financial literacy. But it's good intentions don't always equal good implementation. And this is one of those. So anyway, thank you so much for that presentation and we look forward to hearing how, and I'm so glad that you're able to support our school districts that need it the most.
Thanks for your advocacy.
All right. So now we have proposed policy EAC, EBB, and EBC.
Did you get all your ABC?
I think, I might have said too many things in there, but.
Kind of wondering. I do want to give the board an update as there's obviously a great number of transitions occurring. And I do want you to know you are almost completely caught up. Just in time for this legislative session to come to an end and it's beginning done. But we did change our process a little bit just to facilitate a little bit more input and a little bit greater number of eyes on the process. And so what we've added is as the policies have come in, Cabinet first, the assigned chief, executive director, senior director reviews it, makes suggestions. They then move from there to the BPAC committee, who gets an opportunity. And I think we've moved, rather than just taking a couple of policies, we've reorganized them to be these are required, these are highly recommended, these are optional, and they're there for any input there. And then they come here. So there's a couple of different layers of review before they come to you. We are headed into June and my commitment is to make sure it's as caught up as I'm aware that it needs to be before the transition to Catherine. And so this month and next, you will see kind of a flurry of these are the last ones, so that by the time your board meeting in August takes place, you will have seen all of the required and highly recommended policies, as well as any optional ones that are here. The required ones are pretty much complete. We're now at the highly recommended or ones that the board has likely seen before, and now there's a new revision. And so I bring before you these three policies that for the first reading, and the changes are noted below that have been made either by OSBA. In the instance of the purchasing policies, Jordan was taking a look and find them with the fiscal policies that they.
Right.
Okay, thank you. My only question was kind of wondering on the emergency policy, there was an option that says the ESD will, I'm trying to scroll through fast, but it's basically communicate your emergency plans to your local. So first that struck me because it was struck out. And so I am certain that you have a communication plan, but it concerned me that that wasn't like flagged, like, yes.
Well, and it goes back to, it has actually been a conversation on the committee too. It also comes back to, there is communication that happens, and at the same time, in the event of the most dangerous and striking emergency, you're not going to put that on your website what your plan is, because that potentially adds to that. And I know, Dan, you had thoughts on this.
I sure do. So the thing that struck out here is ESD, emergency management, coordinated with the appropriate police and fire services. So we have 20 school districts, we've got multiple municipalities within each one of that. Counties, cities. For us, that language is really specific for school districts, which is why it's bracketed, it's helpful. Like in a school district, like in Tiger Tarleton was complicated enough because you had unincorporated Washington County land, seemed that most of the, your sheriff, your police department, and you have multiple police departments in it, like that, that's complicated. Just multiply that for us across all of our districts, and it's an impossible task for us to coordinate all of our constituencies with all those entities. So we really piggyback on the school plans mostly, and if there's an emergency in an outlying county, like if it's something that had
move the working through the Hillsborough, the Hillsborough structure. Rather than have one that trying to keep up everywhere.
Any other questions on policies? I'll just say the other thing is that also occurred to me, and I did have some questions on the bidding, but it is, as long as Jordan looked up, I mean, it's way above my pay grade, so if he signed off on it, then I'm good with it. I did think it was interesting, and I don't know if this is an OSHA or what, but to call out exactly on the first day the loss of an eye, I mean, why that had to be exactly spelled out, I thought was.
There's a couple of different requirements, both with OSHA, with the workers' comp carries, varying degrees of injuries require different levels of response by the employer. And so that is specific to what is required depending on the level of injury.
I saw here, don't lose a bone if you work here, because that's a different rule.
There's a different rule, and it used to be that school districts and ESDs were not required to complete the OSHA 300 reports every year that all other employers are required to complete, because there's actually a pretty strong management of workers' compensation in the state. And then within the last 5 years, that has changed. And we now are required to submit OSHA 300 reports every January, like every other employer.
And I do notice that you also made the correction on the actual rules. It's not just, you don't just change policies, you're also correcting the rules, whereas a lot of times in our districts, we make the policy change and then the rules are.
We're trying. There are so many, some of these, as you know, those have been here the entire 4 times. There are some of these policies, I think, on the sexual harassment one, we've seen no less than 6 times. Hopefully we've caught all the changes.
And some rules are required for the rules.
Okay.
Yeah, some by statute, board must actually take action on the rules. So that sometimes you'll consider.
All right, any other questions with first reading? All right, thank you very much. All right. So next up, administrative reports.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would highlight here, and I didn't mention it on my opening, was another one of the capstone projects, our equity learning teams, see it in the Office of Equity and Family Partnership report. The equity learning teams had our last design lab, is what we call it, for the year. That's led by Katie Jones, who's here tonight. She's going to be helping us with some of our resolutions at the end of the night. And basically at the end of the year, we get to hear from the various equity learning teams from across the agency and kind of what they're up to and what they've been figuring out their next steps in their processes. It's a really invigorating day to hear all of the ways that our staff are digging into some of the stickiest and hardest challenges known to humankind, right? We're talking about equity and inclusion, especially in an environment like the one we're living through right now in our country. And so I just applauded the work. I thought it was really good. And you can see in the report, synopsis of things that are other than that, it's just answer questions.
Any questions from board members on the administrative reports?
I'll just make a quick comment, and it was recognition and good news. I just really appreciated in reading about our students and the element skills. And of course, I had my city councilor hat on too, on what a great opportunity to partner with cities, really learn about how individuals with whatever they're overcoming, how they navigate and how we can take that response and learn and improve access. So I just really appreciated the details of that and learned a lot, and appreciated we got to celebrate them tonight as well. So.
And the only comment I'm gonna make, we come to the end of the year, I really appreciate the administrative reports, and I hope that you will take back to your staffs that how much we appreciate the work that goes in, because we don't get to see that as board members, all that in-depth work. And so I really appreciate being able to read about all the things that are going on in various departments. So thank you so much I know it's extra work for people to get that done for us, but, I think you see it's appreciated by us. So, thank you for that. All right, next up is, the 2024-2025 superintendent evaluation. And, we want to know that the process was, done by the board. We have, a committee that was made up of, 4 of us. And that was Doug and Maureen and Chris and myself. But the whole board participates in this, as well as we do, just so everyone knows, we do here in the Northwest Regional ESD, modified, what you call a 360 sort of evaluation. And that meant a survey is sent out to different constituencies that we deal with to evaluate the superintendent. And those constituencies is the executive team, the cabinet. It goes out to the superintendents that make up the Northwest Regional ESD, and evaluation is done on a survey of done by us, the board. And we take all of that information and we compile it, and we meet an executive committee and we discuss it. And then board leadership comes together and we meet directly with the superintendent and go over in depth. So I want to know that this is a very robust process. It is something that this board takes very seriously. It's one of the covenants of what we do as a board. We have one employee, and that employee is our superintendent. And what we then did was put together a summary letter that you will see that is in our board packet. But we do want to say that we are in these very, very difficult times. And it's been a difficult year. It's been a difficult couple of years. Every time we think we're going to catch our breath, something else. This board feels that Superintendent Golden is the right leader at the right time. And that there are many things that his exceptional leadership and empowering others, fostering a positive district culture, persistent advocacy for adequate funding, especially when it comes to ECSE. You heard it again tonight. He has been consistent with that, and then strong fiscal management in a challenging year. I know no one would like better to find a pocket of money to spend on everything that we didn't spend, but managing that. And then again, none of us, everything is not always absolutely perfect. Those things that are so good about the district and how much we appreciate that the superintendent does. But we also know that we could continue to work as a board and as a community on direct communications with our stakeholders, board members, district superintendents, the staff, bargaining units, district families. That is something we can always grow upon and improve upon. And then ensuring the balance of focus on our internal needs versus our external needs. And I think what came up in our discussions is we believe that the superintendent, and again, we know these are difficult financial times, that the superintendent needs some assistance. He has been working many years without a deputy superintendent, without a government affairs person. And these are things that he is handling himself. And we want the superintendent to have balance in his personal and professional life. And we want him to keep coming back every year. And so we want it noted that some of these things that we believe that he needs some assistance. How we're going to make that happen, we're not sure, because these are difficult financial times. But so with that, I open it up to any other board members that would like to speak to the evaluation process. But I really want to thank the superintendent for a very good year, and we feel very fortunate that we are leading the Northwest Regional. Yes. Any other board members?
I will just say again, Dan, we do really appreciate all that you do. We know the sacrifice. We think we know some of this is that you make. But I think one of the things that we may look at as a board is possibly next year using a similar instrument with all three groups so that we can have some discussion on how does this work with your cabinet? How is this being perceived with the superintendents and among board members and things like that? I think that was the only takeaway from the process. I remember we had some discussion about it. So changes in
Well, yeah, if I could comment on the process, I think it was a robust process. Really helped ferret out the places where there are things going really well, places where they might be able to get a bit more attention. And I'm gonna use this one compliment Dan because I'm sure this is it. But I want to say this, that I think, and Dan agrees with this, that a leader in a position like you're only as good as your team is. And I want to first compliment the team that you put together because they help you shine and they help the district shine. And so you've done a good job putting together a good team and you have a good team. So
Any other comments?
Actually, I just want to do a shout out to Valerie because we do take this problem very seriously. We collect and Valerie did an outstanding job of distinctly bringing it together and assisting us in our time to deliver what was needed for them. So sorry, Dan. Thank you, Valerie.
Ditto to all of that and not just the cabinet and the senior staff, but the team that is assembled all down the line, all in every single county. This is really, really tough work and we are again so fortunate to have such dedicated staff and professionals to do the work here. So with that, we're finished with the evaluation process. Only like 4 months long, but it's all done now. Yeah. All right, so now we're gonna move to action items. And the first order of business is to approve the 2023-2024 financial audit. Ready?
Thank you, Chair Timchuk, members of the board. It's good to see you all tonight. I know you have a packed agenda, and so I'll keep my comments brief. I'm joined tonight by Brian Thompson from Polly Rogers. He's getting logged in on Zoom, and so I'll just make a couple brief comments while Brian joins us. We were able to meet with the audit committee at the beginning of last month, Vice Chair Wolf and Stevens, and it's a clean audit. I don't think there's a ton to say about it. I'd love to pontificate for a bit, but I think you have better things to do. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan for his comments, and then, of course, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Jordan, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. As mentioned, my name is Brian Thompson. I'm the main audit team lead who worked on the main bulk of the audits during the 2024 fiscal year. And yeah, pretty much like what Jordan said, it was a clean audit opinion. There weren't any substantial deficiencies or anything, any findings that we found that were deficient or nothing degrading or anything like that as far as I've seen. So I guess I'll kind of briefly go over the purpose of our audits. It'd be basically just to make sure that the financial report is presented fairly and we make sure it's part of the generally accepted accounting principles. We make sure everything's in line with that, as well as being in compliance with generally accepted auditing standards. And then we also make sure of compliance with the state municipal audit law. And then we also check for expenditures with federal grants. That's part of what we call our single audit. So that's pretty much the bulk of what we do with our audits. And then, as mentioned earlier, we have a clean opinion. There weren't any exceptions that we found with state minimum standards. And then as far as federal awards, that we did not find any issues as far as non-compliance or no question costs regarding those. And then we did not have to issue a manager letter. This is only if there were any significant deficiencies or any material weaknesses, which fortunately there were none that we found that year. So very good on that. And then something that I do want to address is for this upcoming fiscal year, there's one accounting standard that I like to address to the board, and that's GASB 101. And this goes over compensated absences, and there's just more that we have to disclose as far as vacation time, sick leave, absences that I won't go into a lot of detail for this presentation, but there's a lot that goes into it this year, and I want to take a moment to extend some appreciation to Jordan and his team. They've been doing a great job with being proactive as far as bringing awareness to the ESD as well as all the school districts involved that we audit. So just some quick appreciation towards that. It helps us on our end as far as being ready for implementing that standard. And then I do have one best practice that we found. This is not necessarily a significant deficiency, but this is just more of essentially a comment that we found during our testing during the year. And there's just only one. It just found a couple instances. We were testing bank reconciliations, and we noted a couple instances where the bank reconciliations were not prepared or reviewed in a timely manner. And we just recommend that those are prepared. We usually around 90 days from the date that the bank statement is closed. But other than that, in conclusion, everything looks great on our end. And yeah, and I welcome any questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Jordan, for, are there any questions from the board?
No, I looked for the management letter, was one of the things, and it was noted that none was required, so thank you for, and your team, for all the work. And no, I always feel like if you really want to understand an organization, you can read their audit materials and get quite a bit out of it. You did an outstanding job of compiling who is what is the ESD. So thank you for all of the work.
Any other board members? All right,
Just major kudos and congratulations on being on it. It's very complex. So congratulations. Great job.
It's good as it gets.
Yeah. Before Brian logs off, I do want to thank Brian. He had a difficult challenge. The audit world is wild. And so Brian had to come in midway and essentially start over. That's a lot of work for our team, of course, and Brian acknowledged that several times, but it was a lot of work for him. So I do want to thank Brian, and then of course Tara Van Dyke, our Director of Fiscal Operations, and Brandon Gallinak, our Senior Accountant. Brandon is really he's the person who does for this. So thank you, Brian.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me.
All right, with that, no other further questions. Is there a motion on the floor? Chris?
I move to approve the 2023-2024 annual comprehensive financial report.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the 2023-2024 financial audit. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, call question. All those in favor of passing, approving the audit, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Brian. Thank you, Jordan. All right, next up. It's you. Go right into it. Financial report.
Thank you. Same thing with this. I won't blather on too much. The financial report is roughly the same as it was the prior month. Our cash position is strong. As a reminder, when I say cash position is strong, it just means we have cash in the bank. It does not mean that our programs are adequately funded and that we're just like swimming in resources. It just means that we can make payroll for the rest of the year without any real concern. The only thing that I would say is it's not a significant change in our financials, but it's just something I like to call out because it's a reminder as to just how complex the funding picture is in Oregon. Our general fund balance projection has increased by $200,000, and that is because of an increase to our state school fund from last year. So the state goes through a reconciliation process with the state school fund every year based on where the students are at, what payments went out to districts, all these different complicated things. And then in May of the following year, after we closed out an audit and all of these different things, we then find out if we owe the state money or if the state owes us money. And so this year it was only $200,000 on a budget in excess of $200 million. 200,000 is not solving any of our problems or anything like that. So it's not that it's a significant amount of money. It's just an important reminder about how funding works in Oregon. So we did, and of course, $200,000, $200,000. We take it, you know. But that is the only, and I can't even say that that's a material change, but that's the only thing close to a material change in the financial report.
Any questions from the board? I would just like you again to explain to us, we're looking at these financials. The difference between when we have a capital project and where the revenue stream comes for those capital projects. And how it interfaces with our regular revenue streams, all of our programs and everything else. Can you please just explain that to us?
That's a great question. So our capital projects fund has been primarily funded for the last several years by a bond sale for the Onquak facility. And so we sold $15,500,000, I believe. That was before I started, I just wanted to say. But I believe that that's what the original issuance was. We did have some capital on hand from the sale of a different building years ago. That also received Class of Service Center, thank you. And so then we also received ESSER funds to help with the Onquak building. So all of those, the reason that those get accounted for in the capital projects fund is because those are revenue sources that are restricted to capital improvements. So we don't have any discretion. We can't sell, even with general obligation. Well, we can't sell general obligation. So full faith and credit bonds, which is what we sold. Either one, we can't sell those bonds on the notion that they're going to be used for capital and then fund operations with it. And so even though capital projects fund is an operating fund, we can't use it for just general operations. It has to be used for capital projects. So that's the primary funding sources for those. There is a small transfer that happens from the general fund for technology. It's around $150,000 a year. So when you see millions of dollars getting spent out of the capital project fund, that was money that we had to raise through a debt issuance, a full faith and credit debt issuance. I won't go into all the details on it. I do think it's important for folks to understand that when we issue debt like that, we do so against our credit rating and our anticipated revenue in our general fund. And so if for whatever reason, the funding source that is used for paying that obligation isn't available, our general fund is liable for making those payments. So
as far as to actually furnish any new buildings we have, does that come from our general fund or does that also come from the capital?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch your thoughts.
No, that's, I just want to make sure that that is. And is it by law or just our own policy that we cannot spend those bonds on anything else?
That's by law.
By law.
Yeah, so when we're furnishing a new building, that is considered part of constructing the new building. So it's capital projects over here.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Ernest.
Yeah, hey there. Hey everybody, good to see you. Jordan, good job as usual. I do want to note that the auditors um did note our timing on bank reconciliations, and being that you kind of opened the conversation with our cash position. Um, 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 is that note or does that note have any effect on these financials that you're presenting today?
I don't think so. And I'm just a person who doesn't like speaking in absolutes. I think that I have a level of confidence that I would normally, if I felt comfortable using absolutes, I would say absolutely not. But when that was brought to our attention, we immediately remedied the issue. It was just a workflow issue, and I'm not trying to make light of it. These are best practices for a reason. But Tara and I figured out what we needed to change in the workflow to make sure that that was happening within 30 days, which is what the auditors consider time.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? With that, is there a motion?
Here, I would move.
April 25 financial report is presented. Second, Ernest.
I'll second.
All right, probably moved and seconded that we accept the April 2025 financial report. Any discussion on the motion? On that, on the question, all those in favor of accepting the financial report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have to adopt resolution 25-011 Pride Month, and that is going to be presented by Katie Jones. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Katie Jones. I'm with the Department of Equity. Hi. We're gonna have that repeat thing again. I'm Katie Jones. I'm with the Department of Equity and Family Partnerships. I'm here to fill the shoes of Dr. Sharice Lowario this evening. Like, those are big shoes to fill. But I'm here to present our resolutions for the upcoming month of June. Both of these, we'll start with our Pride Month resolution, also include resources so that we can continue our own education and supporting our communities. So, whereas Pride Month is a time to honor and celebrate the diverse identities and contributions of the two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, pansexual, gender fluid, and non-binary community members, as well as their heterosexual and cisgender allies. And whereas Oregon's history includes pioneering figures like Peggy Burton, Gladys and Bill McCoy, and Kathleen Sadat, who resisted exclusion and advanced civil rights for the LGBTQIA+ and African American communities alike. And whereas despite progress, LGBTQIA+ people continue to face systemic barriers to safety, equity, and inclusion in areas such as healthcare, education, housing, and employment, and endure disproportionately high rates of violence and discrimination. And whereas studies reveal that LGBTQIA+ students in Oregon frequently experience harassment and exclusion in schools, often without adequate adult intervention. And whereas Northwest Regional ESD board policy unequivocally prohibits discrimination and harassment based on sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, and other protected classes, and commits to creating inclusive learning and working environments. And whereas public education institutions have both a legal and moral responsibility to affirm the humanity, dignity, and belonging of every student and staff member. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Northwest Regional ESD Board of Directors hereby proclaims June 2025 as Pride Month. And be it further resolved that Northwest Regional ESD commits to honoring Pride Month with intentional practices that go beyond symbolism by embedding equity in our educational programs, supporting LGBTQIA+ students and staff, and fostering a culture of affirmation and inclusion throughout our region.
Mayor motion.
An openly clear member of this board, I am proud to motion that we approve the resolution as presented.
I'll second.
A second.
Second. All right, it's been properly moved and seconded, that we adopt resolution 25-011, Pride Month. Is there any discussion? Saying none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. On resolution 25-12.
Thank you. So our second resolution is to recognize Juneteenth Independence Day. Whereas Juneteenth commemorates June 19th, 1865, the day Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, declaring the emancipation of all enslaved people, enforcing President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of January 1st, 1863. Whereas Juneteenth symbolizes African American freedom, resilience, and achievement, celebrated as Juneteenth Independence Day, Freedom Day, and Emancipation Day for over 160 years. Whereas President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act in 2021, recognizing Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Whereas Juneteenth celebrations in Oregon trace back to 1945, with annual celebrations commencing in Portland in 1972, fostering community connection, historical education, and cultural celebration. Whereas Northwest Regional ESD is committed to an inclusive, multicultural, and anti-racist environment, integrating comprehensive Black and African American histories into our curricula, and actively addressing systemic inequalities. Whereas the continued recognition of Juneteenth is vital for acknowledging the historical injustices against African Americans and affirming our collective responsibility for racial equity and justice. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Northwest Regional ESD Board of Directors officially recognizes June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth Independence Day, emphasizing a commitment to education, reflection, and active pursuit of racial justice and equity. Be it further resolved, the Northwest Regional ESD Board encourages students, families, staff, and the wider community to participate in Juneteenth celebrations, learn about this crucial aspect of American history, and engage in ongoing actions towards dismantling racial inequities and promoting healing and unity.
Your emotion.
Chair, I move that we adopt this resolution in its entirety.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept adopt resolution 25-12 on Juneteenth Independence Day. Is there any discussion upon the amendment? With that, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. All right, next action item.
Yep.
We have an action item. Oh, right, so.
Hi, and Chair, just one quick administrative note. The board packet on the website, the link to that resolution at the start of the packet is broken. But the actual reading is further into the packet. So just wanted to make that administrative note.
Thank you. Now we had a couple of glitches to this time with some of the openings, but thank you so much for pointing that out.
Sure.
Appreciate that. All right. Next order of business is the board is going to have an opportunity to deliberate. We heard earlier this evening, we had an executive session where we heard from two different parties. We heard from the administration and we heard from an employee, Holly Ingram. And in that we just deliberated and discussed a decision to uphold or overturn a prior decision that was made by this board back in March. So what I'm gonna open this up with this first, is there a motion so that we can then have a discussion?
Yeah, thank you. I would move to uphold the decision to non-renew probationary employee.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we uphold the decision that was made in March. With that, I open this up to the board for discussion.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair. So these decisions are always the most challenging to make. And I first just want to acknowledge that despite the way I'm going to vote tonight, I really so want to acknowledge the dedication I think Holly has to the children. And that certainly showed, but I feel that given the evidence was put out in front of us, that there's nothing really that would change my decision to.
Any further discussion?
I agree with all of that. The other piece that was evident, was there were support structures each year in place. Those do not seem to be created themselves necessary.
Further discussion? Ernest.
Yes, Chair. So I believe it was last year, I did some work on the joint task force on statewide educator salaries for the Oregon State Legislature. And we discussed the rule in depth that allows school districts various opportunities at our renewal to either renew or non-renew. And we discussed if that should just be a one-time first year decision, or if there needed to be, various renewals. And the reason, well, we learned that, or we recalled that the reason why that rule is important is that it gives us the opportunity to work with our educators over various years, even if there is a problem in the first year, whether it's a problem of fit or anything like this, it gives us the opportunity at a second chance and a third chance. And I think that rule is in play here today. And from everything that I've seen, our educator is very passionate and driven to our work. And it seems like the district also, gave all of those opportunities. So that's something that I just wanted to highlight here, because we have had discussions on this, very topic at the state legislator level. And it seems that this is an opportunity where that rule is in play. And I just wanted to bring that up.
And I would just say, for me, all of the explanations, all of the material that we were given, and then tonight what we were able to hear, beyond a doubt, we know how dedicated an employee is, and that sometimes we just find that sometimes the skill sets and what the job is required don't always mesh, and maybe there's a better partnership there somewhere. But I think the bottom line for me, as being elected to serve on the Northwest Regional Board, is that I am responsible for our most vulnerable students, and we have a legal responsibility. And the state gives us that responsibility. And part of that is timely and correct paperwork with the IDEA. And I think that the administration did everything it possibly could so that we would uphold what we are legally responsible for. And so for that, I would be voting to uphold with the administration and what we as a board took action on in March. So, any other discussion? That I will call question. All those in favor of upholding the decision that was made in March by the board signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, that is all of our action items. Now we open it up to board member comments. Any comments by board?
I have one question for Chair. Who was the second on that motion?
I believe it was Director Russell.
Director Russell.
Was no,
I don't know what that second.
all I think, Chris. I'm sorry. I knew it came from that one. Thank you. Any board comments? I'll just again make comment as superintendent said. Several of us had the chance to participate in the spring conference of all the. And first of all, I want to congratulate Superintendent Goldman on a year dedication to, and again, a difficult year leading that organization. So thank you so much for your time and expertise in doing that. But an observation had chance to make. This was my first statewide conference, and got to go to lots of workout groups, and I got breakout groups. And I got to be in the audience of hearing some Northwest Regional employees, very impressed, but I also got to hear folks ask questions. And what my takeaway was, without any bias, the Northwest Regional ESD is top notch. And so much to be proud of. The innovation, cutting edge, the respect by others, bellwether on almost everything that was going on in the state. And, you know, I was proud to be a part of this organization, but it was so reinforced that I felt so good after spending, we have a lot of dedicated people around the state doing this work, but Northwest Regional ESD is doing it the best. That's why I'm biased. So anyway, with that, great to participate, and we will adjourn. And I did not write down our next meeting is. Well, budget. We will all come together next week for budget meeting, and we will budget chair, and we will discuss the budget. But our next regular meeting is June. 11th. June 11th. All right. So we'll be here for June 11th. But with that, meeting is adjourned.